Here we are, assignment 9.1, and we're looking at cost, volume, profit analysis, which is kind of fun, actually. We're actually looking at break-even. We're looking at what happens when you change the cost, what happens when you sell the selling price, what happens when you change the volume, and just see how that affects the cost and then the profit ultimately. So we're going to start first with looking at variable cost and fixed cost. And what Mel has here is a mixed cost. He found his highest bill was $2,400, and his machines worked 1,000 hours. His lowest bill was $2,200, and his machines worked 500 hours. So there's a variable cost in there somewhere. We need to find it. So first we take, and what's the change in the total cost? So it's $2,400 minus $2,200, which is $200. And what's the change in volume? And we went from 500 to 1,000, so there's 500. So we're going to divide the total cost by the change in volume to get the variable cost per unit. And that would be, well, that's pretty easy for you. That would be 40 cents. Now you're going to look at total fixed cost minus, and now you want to find out what is the fixed cost in that makeup of items. So let's take the highest one. We'll take the total, which is $2,400. Whoops, 24,000. And we're going to subtract what the variable is in there. At 2,400, we had 500, right? Oh, we had 1,000 machine hours, I'm sorry. I was thinking it was 500. There's 1,000 machine hours times that 40 cents, that variable cost. And if we subtract that from the 2,400, we're going to come up with the total fixed cost for this. That's always there. That fixed cost is always there. And obviously 1,000 times 40 cents is $400, so our fixed costs are $2,000. Now you know how to find the variable cost per unit, and you know how to find the overall fixed cost for the product. So now let's move on to something a little more interesting. Now we're going to look at fixed cost and contribution margin per unit. And what the contribution margin is how much of that $70, okay, they sell it for $70, the variable costs are $15. So we know the variable costs are going to go up. So the contribution margin is $55. That is the amount of money that is contributed to find the break-even, or yeah, the break-even or the targeted profit that you would like. And I'll show you how to do that calculation. So now they want to know what is the break-even in tickets. And you're now scratching your head. Well, fixed costs are $371,250 per month. And that's a really important figure, because that becomes what we have to create or what we have to sell for the break-even, just so that we don't lose money. To do that, you take the fixed cost to find this, okay? You're going to take your fixed cost, which is $371, comma 250, and divide it by that contribution margin, which is called CM. So we're going to divide that by 55, and that's going to give us the break-even in tickets, the number of tickets. And that comes up to be 6,750. Now, if we wanted to know what that was in sales, we would multiply that times what? The sales per person, so it's $70. So let's go on down and go to number 3, which I think is going to ask you that question. So the first thing they ask, though, is the contribution margin per person, which is 55, remember? And the sales price per person, which is 70. Now, if we turn that into a ratio, that's going to give us our CM ratio, or contribution margin ratio. Well, I couldn't find the M because I've already used the M. And that is going to equal, what is 55 divided by 70? It comes out to 0.78571. Now, a very slick trick is to find the break-even in sales, okay? You would divide that $371,250 by the 78571, and then you would come up with this $472,503 as the break-even in sales that you would need. So it's really kind of slick the way it all kind of falls into place. And we're going to give you a lot of practice here. Here are 3 scenarios, and they give you all the information you need to find out the contribution margin per unit, the CM ratio, the break-even points in units, the break-even point in sales, and then they give you a targeted income here. You're going to find out what how many units they have to sell to hit that targeted income. And I've given you this template to do that. So let's do the first one so you can understand. So what's my contribution margin per unit? Well, there's my sales, there's my variable, so the CM is 6. What's the margin ratio? Well, sales price over this 6 is 50%, right? You can just figure that one in your head. So what are the break-even points, or break-even units? What is it going to take to break even? Well, if I divide 50 by the 6, I should come up with 8, 1, 2, 3. The next thing is break even in sales, so I would take the 8333 times the sales price, which would give me 99996 as break even in sales, and now they want us to find the targeted operating, with the targeted operating income, which is 50,000. So you would take 50,000 plus 50,000, because fixed costs are 50, operating income is 50, and divide it by the CM, the contribution unit, margin unit. And that would give you how many units you would need to sell to break even, plus have a $50,000 profit in it. And I'm going to let you do these. That's an example of how I did it. The book has some really good examples on how to do those calculations. Very simple. Define the CM per unit is the sales minus the variable. To find the margin, the CM margin ratio, you would divide this 6 by the 12, gives you 50%. Break even is going to be the fixed cost divided by the CM. The break even sales is going to be the units, break even units, times the 12. And then to the units to achieve that operating income, is going to be the fixed cost plus the operating income divided by the 6, or the CM per unit. And that should give you 16,677. You're going to do that with all of them. And it's really good practice. If you can learn this, you're ready to go as far as being with the CVPs, because everything plays off of this. Now, the next one refers to exercise 2, and it's wanting us, they're going to play with some numbers is what they're going to do. And you should be able to pull this off relatively easy. They want, instead of having $70 per person, they're going to change it to $60 a person. And they want you to find the break-even in tickets and in sales. Now, we should be able to do that relatively easy. Just remember, it's contribution margin divided by your contribution margin. Your break-even in tickets is going to be the CM, which is going to be 60 minus, what was that? Where is it? It's going to be, instead of 70 minus 15, it's going to be 60 minus 15. So it's 45 divided into that $371,250 a month. And then that is multiplied times the $60 to get the break-even in sales. And then they're going to do the same thing, only they're going to play with the variable cost. So it's just trading numbers back and forth from that formula that you used all the way up here in number 2. So this is the formula you're working with. And they just want to show you how you can use this to calculate and kind of figure out what's the best mix to use for your pricing. So I'll let you do that one. This one is looking at weighted average CM. And that's really important because when you get kind of an off-balance mix and you're trying to find your break-evens and your contribution margin, sometimes you need to be able to calculate and use a good ratio. So what you'll end up doing is, we've got the numbers, 35 for an individual, and they're saying they're going to sell 1 individual for every 3. So they've got the mix down here. It's 1 and 3, and that gives us 4 parts. Okay. So first of all, you have to total this up. And you have variables of 25, you have 105, and a variable of 100. So, with this, now you're going to figure out the contribution margin for each one of these scenarios. So this one's 10, and this one's 5. Now remember, you're trying to weight these. So, and this is your sales mix. So you're going to multiply that times 1 and this times 3. And then you're going to add that up to 25, and then you're going to divide it by 4 to come up with a weighted average CM of $6.25, and then you can go from there as far as your break-evens and everything. Just another way of looking at it. And now we are looking at socks, sports socks. And they have fixed cost of $90,000 and variable cost of 90 cents per package, and each package sells for $1.80. And then you're going to figure out the contribution margin, the ratio, and the break-even, and the units. And I'm going to let you do that. I bet you can do that all by yourself right now. If you have problems, message me. I'll be more than happy to help you. Have fun with this. These are a lot of fun.